The moment that changed everything did not come with thunder or applause. It came quietly on an ordinary morning when Ethan sat alone in his small apartment, staring at his phone, feeling heavier than he had any right to feel. Nothing bad had happened that day. No argument. No failure. No disaster. Yet his chest felt tight, and his thoughts felt crowded. He had not even spoken to anyone, but somehow the opinions of everyone were already inside his head. What would they think if I quit this job? What would they say if I tried again? Who would laugh if I failed? That was when a simple truth hit him with unexpected force. He was not living his life. He was managing reactions. And that realization shook him more than any failure ever had. If you are reading this, and something inside you feels exposed, it is because you have stood where Ethan stood. You have handed pieces of your peace to people who never earned them. You have waited for approval that never came. You have adjusted your dreams so they would not make others uncomfortable. This story is for you. Ethan had always been responsible. He listened. He explained himself. He defended his choices. He believed that if people understood him, they would support him. That belief followed him from childhood into adulthood like a quiet chain around his ankles. Whenever he made a decision, he prepared a speech. Whenever he dreamed, he softened it. Whenever he felt confident, he waited for permission. And slowly, without noticing, he became tired. Napoleon Hill once wrote that most people live their entire lives ruled by opinions that are not their own. Ethan was living proof of that idea. He woke up every morning already negotiating with the world. That morning, as sunlight cut across the floor, Ethan remembered something his late grandfather once told him. The loudest people rarely know where they are going. The quiet ones already decided. That sentence echoed in his mind. For the first time, he asked himself a dangerous question. What if I stopped explaining? The idea felt wrong at first. Almost rude. He had been trained to justify himself. To defend his direction. To make sure everyone was comfortable with his choices. But deep down, he knew something else was true. No explanation had ever saved him. Every time he explained, someone questioned. Every time he defended, someone doubted. Every time he justified, someone judged. Hill taught that definiteness of purpose is the starting point of all achievement. Ethan realized he had purpose, but no definiteness. Why? Because his purpose was constantly interrupted by other people's opinions. That day, he made a quiet decision. Not a dramatic one. Not one he announced. He decided to stop explaining himself. The test came sooner than expected. At work, a coworker asked why he was no longer applying for promotions he never wanted. In the past, Ethan would have launched into a careful explanation. This time, he smiled and said nothing. The silence felt uncomfortable, then powerful. The coworker filled the silence with their own assumptions. Ethan let them. He walked away lighter than he had in years. That moment taught him something critical. Silence was not weakness. Silence was control. Napoleon Hill believed that self-control is the foundation of all personal power. Ethan was learning that self-control did not always mean speaking wisely. Sometimes it meant not speaking at all. As days passed, Ethan practiced this new rule. When friends questioned his direction, he listened without responding. When family doubted his plans, he nodded and changed the subject. When critics whispered, he kept working. Something strange began to happen. His mind became quieter. His energy returned. His focus sharpened. He was no longer fighting battles that led nowhere. Hill warned that the habit of drifting keeps people stuck. Explaining is a form of drifting. It keeps you reacting instead of creating. Ethan stopped drifting the moment he stopped defending. He realized that people who demand explanations are often uncomfortable with their own inaction. Your movement reminds them of what they avoided. This understanding freed him. He began waking up with intention. Not to impress. Not to prove. But to build. He stopped talking about what he wanted and started working toward it. And something even more powerful happened. The same people who once questioned him began watching quietly. Some disappeared. Some grew respectful. Some stayed confused. None of it mattered anymore. Hill taught that success attracts attention without explanation. Ethan was becoming proof instead of a speaker. One evening, sitting alone again, Ethan laughed softly to himself. The same silence that once scared him now protected him. He understood the first rule of the unbothered life. You owe no one an explanation. You owe yourself action. This was not about becoming cold. It was about choosing where his energy went. He was building an inner fortress, just as Hill described, a mindset so strong that outside noise could not penetrate it. And this was only the beginning. The habit of silence gave him something priceless. Momentum. In the coming parts of this journey, you will learn the remaining rules that transformed Ethan from a man ruled by opinions into a man guided by purpose. Each rule builds on the last. Each one removes another chain. But none of them work without this foundation. Stop explaining. Start building. The moment you do, you step onto a path few are brave enough to walk. The unbothered life does not shout. It grows quietly until the world has no choice but to notice. Part 2. The moment Ethan realized how much power he had been giving away did not come during an argument or a failure. It came during silence. A single comment, spoken casually by someone who barely mattered, stayed in his mind for days. That was when the truth hit him harder than any insult ever could. Why does this still affect me? If one sentence can shake you, then you are not free. If you are reading this and your chest tightens, it is because you know this feeling. You replay words in your head. You relive moments. You wonder what you did wrong. You take things personally that were never meant for you in the first place. This is the second prison most people never escape. Napoleon Hill taught that the mind is the most powerful tool a person owns, yet most people allow others to operate it. Ethan had done exactly that. Every reaction from others became a verdict on his worth. Every tone shift became a threat. Every criticism felt like a personal attack, and slowly, without noticing, his confidence leaked away. One evening, after a long day, Ethan sat across from his mentor, an older man who had built a quiet, successful life without noise or drama. Ethan shared his frustration. He spoke about how people's words followed him home. How comments echoed long after conversations ended. The mentor listened carefully, then asked one question. Do you believe most people wake up thinking about you? Ethan hesitated. No, then why do you believe their words are about you? That question shattered something inside him. The mentor continued. Most people are reacting to their own fears, their own disappointments, their own limitations. You just happen to be nearby. Napoleon Hill wrote that people are controlled not by events, but by their interpretations of events. Ethan realized he had been interpreting everything as personal because his ego was always standing in the open, unprotected. He thought sensitivity made him aware. In truth, it made him vulnerable. The next day, he decided to test a new rule. He would stop taking things personally. The opportunity came quickly. A coworker dismissed his idea in a meeting. In the past, Ethan would have shut down. He would have questioned his intelligence. He would have carried the moment for weeks. This time, he paused. He watched the coworker speak. He noticed the tension in their voice. The rushed tone. The need to dominate the room. This is not about me, he thought. And just like that, the sting disappeared. Napoleon Hill believed that mastery of emotion is the foundation of leadership. Ethan was learning that emotional control did not mean suppressing feelings. It meant understanding them. When you take things personally, you make yourself the center of every storm. When you stop, you become an observer instead of a victim. Over the following weeks, Ethan practiced this discipline daily. When someone ignored his message, he did not assume rejection. When someone criticized his work, he examined the feedback without absorbing the insult. When someone spoke harshly, he looked for the pain behind the words. Each time, his peace remained intact. He realized something powerful. Most people are fighting invisible battles. They speak from wounded places. They project their fears onto others. Their words are confessions, not conclusions. Hill taught that the world mirrors back what you believe about yourself. When Ethan stopped believing that every reaction defined him, the mirror changed. He no longer carried unnecessary weight. This did not make him passive. It made him precise. He learned the difference between noise and instruction, between insult and insight, between criticism and projection. Wisdom, he discovered, is knowing what deserves your attention and what deserves your silence. One afternoon, a family member questioned his direction sharply. Old habits stirred. His chest tightened. But he remembered the rule. Pause. Is this about me or their fear? He chose not to react. He listened calmly. He responded without defense. The conversation ended peacefully. Later that night, Ethan realized something else. Not taking things personally does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop bleeding for things that were never meant to wound you. Napoleon Hill warned that uncontrolled emotion is one of the greatest causes of failure. Ethan saw why. Emotion without perspective turns strength into weakness. As he mastered this rule, his presence changed. People noticed that he was calmer. He was steadier. He was harder to disturb. Insults lost their power. Rejection lost its sting. Criticism lost its authority. He was no longer asking others to define him. This is what it means to be unbothered. It is not coldness. It is clarity. The unbothered person understands that most people are too busy surviving their own chaos to truly see you. They speak from their wounds. They react from their fears. They judge from their limitations. And none of that belongs to you. When you stop taking things personally, you reclaim your mind. You stop allowing strangers to edit your self-image. You stop letting careless words write permanent stories in your soul. You become free. Ethan began waking up lighter. His thoughts were quieter. His focus sharper. He no longer rehearsed conversations in his head. He no longer carried invisible arguments into the night. Hill taught that peace of mind is the greatest wealth a person can achieve. Ethan was finally becoming wealthy. This rule became his armor. Words could hit it, but they could not pierce it. Actions could test it, but they could not break it. He was learning to move through life without absorbing every impact. And this was only the second step. In the next part, you will learn the rule that teaches you how to protect your energy by choosing your battles wisely. A rule that separates those who are always exhausted from those who always rise. But remember this before moving forward. What offends you controls you. What you detach from loses power. Stop taking things personally. And you will discover that most of what once hurt you was never about you at all. Part 3. The breaking point did not come during a failure. It came during exhaustion. Ethan noticed it one evening as he sat alone, staring at nothing, feeling completely drained even though he had done nothing physically demanding that day. His body was still. His mind was not. It had been running races all day long. Replaying conversations. Revisiting old hurts. Carrying worries that did not belong to him. That was when a dangerous thought surfaced. If I keep living like this, I will burn out long before I ever succeed. Most people never realize that exhaustion is not always caused by work. Often, it is caused by unguarded energy. Napoleon Hill taught that success requires sustained effort, and sustained effort is impossible without disciplined energy. Ethan was leaking energy everywhere. He was spending it on arguments that changed nothing. He was giving it to people who never returned it. He was allowing his thoughts to wander into dark places that served no purpose. And the cost was becoming unbearable. If you are reading this and feel constantly tired no matter how much you rest, this rule is for you. Rule 3 was about to change everything. Guard your energy ruthlessly. At first, the idea sounded extreme. Ruthless felt harsh. But Ethan quickly learned that nothing great is built gently. Hill often wrote about the importance of conserving mental power. Ethan realized that power wasted is power lost forever. Energy is not unlimited. Attention is not endless. Time is not refundable. That truth settled deep. The next morning, Ethan began paying attention not to what he was doing, but to how he felt after doing it. After one conversation, he felt lighter. After another, he felt drained. After scrolling endlessly through noise, he felt empty. After quiet focus, he felt alive. His body was giving him data he had ignored for years. Napoleon Hill believed that intuition is one of the highest forms of intelligence. Ethan decided to trust it. He stopped answering messages immediately. He stopped engaging in conversations that turned negative. He stopped revisiting memories that reopened wounds. This was not avoidance. It was discipline. The first test came when a longtime friend called only to complain. Ethan listened for a moment, then gently ended the call. He felt guilty at first. Then he felt calm. That calm told him everything. Protecting your energy will offend people who benefit from draining it. Hill warned that not everyone grows at the same pace. Ethan understood that guarding his energy meant accepting that some people could not come with him. This was not cruelty. This was survival. As he practiced this rule, something unexpected happened. His focus sharpened. His ideas became clearer. His confidence grew. He had more to give because he was no longer giving it away to everything and everyone. Then came Rule 4. Accept that you cannot control others. This rule hit Ethan harder than the others. Not because it was complicated, but because it shattered a lifelong illusion. He had believed that if he explained himself better, people would understand. If he worked harder, people would appreciate. If he gave more, people would reciprocate. None of that was guaranteed. Napoleon Hill taught that one of the greatest causes of suffering is trying to control what cannot be controlled. Ethan saw how much of his life had been spent managing expectations that were never realistic. People disappointed him. People misunderstood him. People acted in ways that hurt him, and he took it personally because he believed he could have prevented it. The truth was uncomfortable. You cannot control how others think. You cannot control how others behave. You cannot control how others feel about you. That realization felt like failure at first. Then it felt like freedom. The moment Ethan stopped trying to control people, he reclaimed enormous energy. He stopped arguing to be understood. He stopped explaining himself repeatedly. He stopped forcing relationships to work. He let people be who they were. Hill believed that mastery begins with self-control, not control over others. Ethan finally understood that his power was not in changing people, but in choosing how he responded to them. One afternoon, someone he trusted disappointed him deeply. Old habits urged him to react, to confront, to demand answers. Instead, he paused. He remembered the rule. I cannot control this. And just like that, the anger loosened its grip. He chose acceptance over resistance. This did not mean he approved of the behavior. It meant he refused to destroy his peace trying to fix something that was not his responsibility. Acceptance is not surrender. It is clarity. When you stop expecting people to be different, you stop being disappointed by who they are. This shift changed everything. Ethan became calmer in conflict, steadier in chaos, more grounded in uncertainty. He no longer chased closure from people who could not provide it. He no longer waited for apologies that might never come. He no longer needed others to validate his experience. Hill wrote that peace of mind is the highest form of success. Ethan was beginning to live that truth. By guarding his energy and releasing control, he created space. In that space, something powerful grew: confidence, not loud confidence. Quiet certainty. The kind that does not argue. The kind that does not explain. The kind that does not need approval. People noticed the change. Some respected it. Some resented it. Some drifted away. Ethan let all of it happen. He was no longer responsible for managing reactions. He was responsible only for his growth. This is the unbothered way. You protect your energy like a sacred resource. You accept that others will be who they are. You stop trying to steer lives that are not yours to steer, and in doing so, you become lighter, stronger, unshakable. Before moving forward, ask yourself this: where is your energy leaking? Who is draining it? What are you trying to control that will never be under your control? Every answer is an opportunity to reclaim your power. In the next part, you will learn the rule that teaches you how to let go without bitterness and move forward without looking back. But for now, remember this: your energy is your life. Your peace is your power. And control over others is an illusion that costs too much to maintain. Guard what is yours. Release what is not. This is how the unbothered are made. Part 4. The calm that Ethan had found did not mean life became easy. It meant life became clear. One morning, he woke up with a strange feeling. There was no rush of anxiety. No urge to check messages. No pressure to respond to the world immediately. For the first time in years, his mind was quiet enough for him to hear his own thoughts. And that was when the next challenge appeared: silence. Most people think silence is peace. In truth, silence reveals everything you have been running from. Ethan realized that without noise, distractions, and drama, he was face to face with himself. His fears. His doubts. His unfinished dreams. And this is where most people turn back. Napoleon Hill taught that fear is the most destructive force in the human mind. But he also taught that fear survives only when it is not confronted. Ethan was about to learn the next rule of the unbothered life. Rule 5 was simple to say, but difficult to live: get comfortable standing alone. Ethan had spent much of his life surrounded by people, yet deeply influenced by their presence. Their approval comforted him. Their attention reassured him. Their reactions guided his choices. Without realizing it, he had been outsourcing his confidence. Now, as he guarded his energy and released control over others, space opened up around him. Some people faded away. Some conversations stopped. Some invitations never came again. At first, it felt like loss. Then he understood. Not everyone disappears because you are doing something wrong. Some disappear because you are doing something right. Hill wrote that every person who achieves greatness must be willing to stand apart from the crowd. Ethan was living that truth. Growth was demanding separation. The loneliness tested him. There were evenings when doubt whispered that he had gone too far. That maybe he should explain himself again. Maybe soften his boundaries. Maybe re-enter the noise. But each time he considered it, he remembered how drained he used to feel. How scattered. How small. He chose stillness instead. Standing alone did not mean rejecting people. It meant no longer needing them to confirm his worth. This distinction changed everything. Ethan began to see how often people stay in unhealthy situations simply because they fear being alone. They tolerate disrespect. They accept chaos. They settle for half-lived lives because solitude scares them more than suffering. Hill warned that the fear of criticism and the fear of loneliness keep people trapped. Ethan was confronting both. He started spending time with himself intentionally. He walked without headphones. He ate meals without distractions. He sat quietly and thought. At first, his mind resisted. It searched for noise. But slowly, something deeper emerged. Clarity. In the quiet, Ethan discovered what he actually wanted. Not what sounded impressive. Not what others approved of. What felt true. This was the birth of definiteness of purpose. Hill taught that once a person defines their purpose clearly, the world begins to rearrange itself. Ethan felt this shift internally before anything changed externally. He stopped chasing validation. He stopped explaining his choices. He stopped reacting to every opinion. His confidence no longer came from being liked. It came from being aligned. People noticed. Some called him distant. Some called him changed. Some called him cold. None of it mattered. He was no longer available for misinterpretation. Standing alone taught him another powerful truth. When you do not need company, you choose it wisely. You stop filling space with noise. You stop mistaking attention for connection. Hill believed that quality of association determines destiny. Ethan finally understood why. He became selective. Not everyone earned access to his time. Not every conversation deserved his energy. Not every opinion required his attention. This was not arrogance. It was respect for his mission. There were moments when the old habits tried to return. Moments when criticism stung. Moments when isolation felt heavy. But each time, Ethan reminded himself, growth is lonely before it is visible. The unbothered person accepts this stage without resentment. As weeks passed, the loneliness transformed. What once felt empty now felt full. Full of ideas. Full of strength. Full of direction. Silence became a friend. In that silence, Ethan began building something quietly. Not announcing. Not explaining. Just working. Hill wrote that the most powerful people move quietly until their results speak for them. Ethan was becoming one of them. Standing alone gave him resilience. When setbacks came, he did not collapse. When rejection appeared, he did not chase. When delays tested him, he did not quit. He trusted himself because he had learned to sit with himself. This rule was shaping him into someone unrecognizable from the man he once was. The unbothered do not fear solitude. They use it. They understand that before you can lead, you must stand. Before you can be followed, you must walk alone. Before you can be heard, you must learn silence. Ethan no longer filled his days with noise just to feel connected. He built inner connection first. And from that place, everything changed. In the next part, you will learn the rule that teaches you how to move forward without resentment and how to let go of the past without dragging it behind you. But for now, remember this. If you cannot stand alone, you will always stand where others place you. Choose solitude over approval. Choose clarity over noise. Choose alignment over attention. This is the way of the unbothered, and it is the path few are brave enough to walk. Part 5. The moment Ethan realized he was truly changing did not come during success. It came when the past knocked on his door, and he did not answer. One afternoon, a memory surfaced without warning. An old betrayal. An old disappointment. A moment he once replayed 1,000 times in his mind. In the past, this memory would have hijacked his mood for the entire day. It would have dragged him backward, flooding him with anger, regret, and the desire for closure. This time, it passed through him like a cloud and moved on. That was when Ethan understood the next rule. Rule 6 was revealing itself. Release the past completely. Napoleon Hill taught that no one can move forward while dragging the weight of yesterday behind them. Yet most people live chained to memories they cannot change. They revisit old conversations. They relive old wounds. They argue with people who are no longer present. And every time they do, they give the past power over the present. Ethan had done this for years. He carried resentment like proof that he had been wronged. He held on to anger as if it protected him. He believed remembering pain would prevent it from happening again. But all it had done was poison his progress. If you are reading this and still feel emotional when you think about something that happened long ago, this rule is for you. The past cannot be fixed. It can only be released. At first, letting go felt unfair. Ethan wondered why he should be the one to release pain he did not cause. Why he should forgive without apology. Why he should move on when others never took responsibility. Then he remembered something Hill wrote. Holding on to anger is like expecting the person who hurt you to feel the pain you are carrying. That sentence changed everything. Ethan realized forgiveness was not about excusing behavior. It was about reclaiming energy. It was about refusing to let old events rent space in his mind without paying anything in return. He began practicing conscious release. When a memory surfaced, he acknowledged it. When emotion followed, he observed it. Then he let it go. No stories. No replay. No argument, just release. This was not weakness. This was mastery. As he practiced, he noticed something powerful. The more he released the past, the more room he had for the future. Napoleon Hill believed that the subconscious mind cannot move toward opportunity while it is trapped in regret. Ethan felt this truth deeply. New ideas began to form. New motivation returned. New confidence grew quietly. He was no longer defined by what happened to him. He was defined by what he chose next. One evening, Ethan wrote down everything he had been holding on to. Every resentment. Every disappointment. Every moment he wished had gone differently. When he finished, he looked at the pages and felt something unexpected. Relief. These memories had been heavy because he kept carrying them. The moment he set them down, they lost their weight. He did not need closure from others. He did not need apologies. He did not need explanations. He needed freedom. Hill taught that success requires a clean mental slate. Ethan was finally clearing his. Releasing the past also meant releasing old versions of himself. The insecure version. The reactive version. The version that explained too much and tolerated too little self-respect. Those versions had served their purpose. They did not need to come along. This rule changed how Ethan moved through life. When reminded of failure, he learned from it and moved on. When reminded of betrayal, he adjusted his boundaries and moved forward. When reminded of regret, he corrected course without shame. He no longer punished himself for lessons already learned. The unbothered person understands this deeply. Pain is a teacher, not a life sentence. As Ethan let go, something else happened. His heart softened without becoming weak. He felt compassion for himself and others without reopening wounds. He stopped blaming. He stopped reliving. He stopped looking backward. Hill often emphasized that clarity of purpose requires freedom from emotional baggage. Ethan was now free enough to see his future clearly. This rule also changed how he viewed people who hurt him. Instead of anger, he saw limitation. Instead of resentment, he saw distance. Not everyone who fails you is evil. Some are simply incapable. Understanding this allowed him to move on without bitterness. Letting go did not mean forgetting. It meant remembering without pain. And that is true power. Ethan noticed how many people around him were trapped in their past. They spoke more about what happened than what they were building. They lived in reaction instead of creation. He refused to join them. He chose progress over pride. Peace over proof. Growth over grievance. The unbothered life demanded it. As Part 5 came to a close, Ethan stood on the edge of something new. He had stopped explaining. He had stopped taking things personally. He had guarded his energy. He had accepted what he could not control. He had learned to stand alone. And now, he had released the past. There was only one rule left. The final rule would teach him how to live forward without fear and move through the world with quiet certainty. But before moving on, remember this: you cannot step into a new life while holding on to an old one. You cannot build a future with hands full of yesterday. You cannot become unbothered while dragging pain you no longer need. Release it. Leave it. Let it go. The past has already taken enough from you. Part 6 will show you how to live fully in the present and move toward your vision with unshakable faith. And when you reach it, you will no longer recognize the person you once were. Part 6. The final step to becoming unbothered. Ethan stood at the edge of a quiet lake one morning, sunlight bouncing off the ripples, and he realized something he had never understood before. Life was not about what happened to him. Life was about what he chose to do with it. For years, he had allowed opinions, criticisms, and past mistakes to dictate his every move. He had carried the weight of anger, fear, and disappointment like a backpack filled with rocks. And it had slowed him down. It had made him smaller than he was capable of being. But now, after mastering the previous 5 rules, something remarkable had begun to happen. Ethan felt a freedom that was impossible to describe, yet undeniably real. It was as if he had been living in a room with thick walls, and now someone had opened the windows, letting light pour in. This morning, he understood the final rule, the one that would transform his life completely. Rule 6. Live fully in the present and move forward with unshakable faith. Napoleon Hill taught that all achievement begins with faith, and faith begins with action. The unbothered life is not about avoiding challenges or escaping pain. It is about facing reality with confidence, making decisions deliberately, and trusting that every step forward builds the life you are meant to live. Ethan thought about all the moments he had hesitated. All the opportunities he had let slip because he feared judgment or failure. Now, with clarity in his purpose and peace in his mind, he understood that hesitation was the enemy of growth. Action, no matter how small, was the antidote. He took a deep breath and looked around. The lake reflected his calm face. He realized he was no longer carrying the burdens of others, nor was he weighed down by the ghosts of his past. He had released the need to control, to explain, to defend. He had learned to guard his energy, to stand alone, and to forgive both himself and others. Now it was time to move forward. Hill often wrote that the mind follows the direction you give it. If you focus on fear, you will attract fear. If you focus on doubt, you will find doubt waiting at every corner. But if you focus on purpose, action, and possibility, the world bends to your resolve. Ethan made a choice that morning. He would no longer let distractions dictate his focus. He would no longer seek validation from those unwilling or unable to give it. He would move forward, step by step, trusting that the results of consistent action would speak louder than words ever could. Living fully in the present meant embracing each moment as an opportunity to create, to improve, and to become. It meant that past failures no longer defined him. Past criticisms no longer controlled him. Past relationships no longer drained him. Every moment was a clean slate, and he held the pen. He'll emphasize the importance of definiteness of purpose. Ethan wrote down his goals, his vision, and the kind of person he wanted to become. He did not tell anyone. He did not justify his choices. He did not wait for approval. He acted. The days that followed were quiet yet powerful. Ethan woke early. He planned his actions. He avoided distractions. He focused his energy entirely on what mattered. Every decision was filtered through the question, does this move me closer to my vision? Soon, results began to appear. Small at first. Subtle. But unmistakable. His clarity drew the right people into his life. His calm attracted opportunity. His disciplined focus produced outcomes that surprised even him. And through it all, the noise of the world, the opinions, the judgments, the chaos, simply faded into the background. It no longer affected him because he had learned the unbothered mindset. What others think is none of your business. What you do matters more than what others say. Hill also taught that persistence is the hallmark of all great achievers. Ethan faced setbacks, of course. Life always tests the ones determined to grow. But he no longer reacted emotionally. He assessed, adjusted, and moved forward. Every obstacle became a lesson. Every challenge became a stepping stone. Every criticism became an opportunity for reflection rather than a reason to crumble. In time, Ethan became an example of unshakable peace. People noticed his calm. They wondered how he moved through life with such ease, how he never seemed rattled by chaos. The answer was simple. He had taken control of what he could, and he had released what he could not. Hill said that a clear mind, focused energy, and definite purpose attract opportunities that others cannot see. Ethan saw it happen firsthand. Doors opened where none existed before. Connections appeared where none were expected. Ideas flowed freely, and his progress accelerated. Most importantly, Ethan realized that the unbothered life was not about being untouchable. It was about being intentional. It was about living deliberately, acting consistently, and trusting the process even when the outcome was not immediately visible. Now, standing by the lake, he understood the final truth. The unbothered life is not a destination. It is a practice. A daily choice. A commitment to honor your energy, your time, and your vision above the noise, above the opinions, and above the distractions. He had become someone who could face criticism without fear, rejection without resentment, challenges without panic, and solitude without loneliness. He had become someone who no longer handed over their power to anyone. And now it was your turn. The 6 rules are clear. Stop explaining yourself. Stop taking things personally. Guard your energy ruthlessly. Accept that you cannot control others. Stand alone confidently. Live fully in the present with unshakable faith. Master these rules and your life will change. The peace, the clarity, and the unstoppable momentum you have been searching for are within your grasp. The world will still offer opinions. It will still create chaos. It will still test you in ways you cannot anticipate. But when you follow these principles, nothing can shake you. Napoleon Hill believed that your mind is the most powerful tool you possess. Your thoughts, your choices, and your actions determine your destiny. Ethan had finally learned this truth and had applied it consistently. And now, so can you. Start today. Take one step forward in alignment with your purpose. Guard your energy. Let go of the past. Accept what you cannot control. Stand in your power. Act with faith. The unbothered life is waiting. The results are real. The freedom is yours. If you are ready to begin this journey, start now. Stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for approval. Step into your power and let the world witness your transformation. If this story inspired you, if you feel ready to embrace your unbothered life, do not keep it to yourself. Subscribe for more motivational content, share this with someone who needs it, and comment below about the first step you are taking today. Your journey starts the moment you decide to move. And remember, your peace, your energy, and your purpose are yours to protect. Live the unbothered life and become the person you were always meant to be.